Okay, so we're finally back on my B channel. It's fun to be back. We've had a few subscribers. I mean, I started with 0, now we've got 37. So shout out to all 37 of you. We're going to be reacting to just a few interesting videos. I mean, this channel is more just where I talk about like money management, trending topics and things like that. If you have any videos that you want me to react to, and obviously send them in, comment them, tell me about them, DM me, whatever. But without further ado, like I said, we've got a few videos to go through in this live stream. If you can't watch the live stream through, we will be clipping them into separate videos. So yeah, so this first one is via Johnny Harris, what being a billionaire really looks like. And he's had very interesting videos in the past I've watched from him. So I really wanted to see what this was about.
This is what $100 million looks like. 100 million $1 bills. Look at this. Okay, but watch this. This is what $100 billion looks like. Whoa, that's $100 billion. There's like 19 people on Earth that have this much money.
I think sometimes a lot of people struggle to really contextualize how much money things like a billion is, because a billion is so much money. Like compared to even 100 million, which to me is outrageous money. When you start talking about the billions, it's so far, like it's so much money. I think a lot of people struggle to really understand how much money that is, but yeah.
Oh, and by the way, one of these guys just bought a house right up the road here in Washington, D.C. Remember when we did the piles of cash? This is what $100,000 looked like when we did that visualization. So yeah, we're in a whole different echelon now. I want to show you the lifestyles of people who are worth this much money versus this much money. So we've been talking to experts, interviewing people who work with the ultra wealthy to construct real world scenarios of what these people's lives look like, what kind of influence they have in society, to understand what and who they can buy.
Oh, and by the way, we're launching a media company. It's called New Press. It's going to be very different than anything you've ever seen. It's going to be about transparency, letting you have insight into our journalistic process and contribute to it.
So first up, let's start with $100 million.
So see what I'm saying? $100 million is outrageous money. So I have an idea that however much money you have, like if you had 100 million in cash, if you invested it properly, you could get a 10% return on your investment. So that 10% return on your investment would, be essentially, you have 100 million would be 10 million a year. So if you have 100 million, you could live off 10 million a year every year until you die, which is insane. So that's how much money 100 million is. So then if you have a billion, think about it this way, you have $1 billion, that 10% is now 100 million every year. You have 10 billion, that 10% is 1 billion every year. You have 100 billion, that 10% is, so imagine if you have 100 billion just all invested and all that sort of stuff, there's a world in which you can earn a return of 10 billion. Even let's say 1%, which everyone gets better than a 1% return, especially people that rich that have access to all the resources. Let's just even say it's 1%. So if you had 100 billion, that 1% would be 1 billion every single year. I don't even know that. And that's why when you see the richest men in the world, like their wealth always goes up so quickly, because it just gets to a point you can't outspend how much you earn. It's like if you're earning 1 billion every year from your assets, I don't even know how to spend that. Like if you were to buy a private jet, like a crazy expensive private jet, like the most expensive Gulfstream, it's probably like 100 million. You still got 900 million left. Then you buy a crazy yacht for 100 million. You still got 800 million left. Then you buy a 20 million house in New York, London, Paris, many other places. You won't go past like 200 million, and you still got 600 million left. You buy all the cars, all the Rolls Royces, all the Maybachs, all of that. You're still, it's so like, so when I do it, that you can't even spend it. Like even if you tried, you could not spend that money unless you're just like, you've lost your mind.
This is Scott. I started a candy company and I grew it over many years, and I eventually sold it to a big, giant candy corporation. And because I started the company, I own most of it, and so I got a huge payout from this sale. Between that and a bunch of other investments over the years, I now have a net worth of $100 million. Wow, that's a big number. My primary residence is New York City, where 818 other centimillionaires live. Centimillionaires, it's like 100 millionaires. I'll show you my New York City house in just a second. But first, let's talk about my fortune and how I can spend it. Now, I can't actually spend my fortune right now because all of it is in the stock market. The upside to that is that it grows and grows. My portfolio grows at 10% every year. So what if I just sell
Okay, cool. So he did say the 10% that I said. Yeah, most people at that level can get about, not every time, it's not a perfect science, but let's just say between 6 to 12.
This $10 million return I got this year. This could fund some of my lifestyle. Ugh, but look at all these taxes. All in all, it's like 37% of that $10 million. I guess it still leaves me with $6.3 million bucks to spend. And look, I didn't even have to touch my portfolio. I'm still worth $100 million. Wait, is this video just tax calculations? No. Let's go find a house. My budget for a house is anywhere between $8 and $15 million, which sources told us is common at this level. And even though I live in one of the most expensive and crowded cities on Earth, with my budget, I can find a pretty sick house, I think. Okay, let's look around. Boy, there's some...
It's so funny, like London is very similar to New York. I think New York maybe actually has less space in terms of like the housing is a bit smaller, but in New York and London, no one can afford any house. But if you have 100 million net worth, all of a sudden you can actually live in places where you can actually stretch your legs. Most people in these like cities, me included, we all live in places where you can't even stretch your legs. Like there's not enough square footage. And then you get to that level of wealth and you can actually walk around in your house.
Nice options here. How about this one? $8.5 million. This nice apartment in Midtown Manhattan. The listing tells me...
Seeing a house that big in New York is insane to me. Like, I don't know if I've ever actually laid my eyes on a house that big in New York before.
That this is the epitome of refined living. A superior pre-war white glove cooperative. What does that mean? 4 bedrooms, 4 bath. This sun-kissed airy. This sun-kissed airy is one of the crown jewels of the Tony Enclave. What is it? Am I reading like a different language? What is the Tony Enclave? I don't know what any of those words mean, sorry. But I do know that it has a semi-private elevator and is the perfect setting for alfresco entertaining. And me, 100 millionaire, I am super into alfresco entertaining. I mean, this is looking like a pretty great house. It's got this super romantic painting above the mantle. And in addition to my real library, I also get a bathroom that kind of looks like one. By the way, this is only my primary residence. It's not my only home. I've got a couple vacation homes around the country and the world. This one in Miami, which is increasingly a playground for the ultra-rich, and this one in the south of France. And both of these have full-time housekeepers. Let's talk about my vacations. I visit these houses.
I was gonna say, yeah, you would want a Miami home if you're really rich because you can, like, if you buy a yacht, it's really good for yachting. So if you buy a yacht, you can find somewhere to park it. You can actually use it. Most people that are rich, they don't actually live in places where using a yacht would be viable. So some of the really rich ones, they like travel. If you're wondering how I know all this, by the way, I work in the fashion industry. So I work in the luxury sector. So I know all about all this sort of stuff. But unless you're like really rich, so a lot of really rich people, they have like a calendar where they move between each thing. So in the summer, they actually go to places like Monaco or like Miami and stuff. It's like a whole thing.
A couple times a year, but for my other vacations, I'll maybe go to the Hamptons because I love to watch polo. There's this great polo match in July, and I buy a VIP ticket that will cost me only $3,500. Or lately I've been getting into F1, and so I'll go to the race in Monaco. I'll stay at this Hotel Heritage. Oh no, Hermitage. I'll stay at the Hotel Hermitage, Monte Carlo, for just 22,000 euros a night, which is like $25,000 per night. Okay, let's get to the F1 race.
And the Monaco Grand Prix is underway.
Jeez, no one told me I needed to bring my swimsuit to the F1 race. I'm feeling a little overdressed. Food's great, chef. Great view. Let's get to the race. I'm planning on watching the F1 race from a private yacht. The ticket was $16,000. And look at the benefits here. I get to walk around in the pit, I get to meet the drivers, and I even get VIP tenders?
Not those kind of tenders.
Not that kind of tender. Just a fancy boat that brings me out to the yacht. Anyway, something's bothering me. Remember when I showed you I could sell off the returns that I made this year from my stocks and still come out with millions of dollars of cash to spend? Well, I didn't really like having to sell off all those returns and then have to pay like over 30% in taxes. Me and everyone else you'll see in this video don't like to sell our portfolio, our assets, to get cash.
I'm going to guess. I think I know who's going. I know that a lot of rich people, what they do to avoid paying tax is they get a loan, because it's like, by the time you're worth 100 million, it's probably very easy for banks to verify your wealth. And by the time you're worth 100 million, you also don't bank with normal banks. So if you bank with like the private banks, the high net worth banks, they normally have like crazy benefits, like being able to easily get loans using your own like net worth as like collateral against the loans. And that way on your books, it looks like you took a loan. So it looks like you're always in the negative. So then, you know, you're not going to pay tax basically because you took a loan. So you're always in a negative. That's kind of what a lot of rich people do. But then I still need to think about, I'm not rich, so I haven't thought about this a lot, but I always wonder, like, what happens when you die then? Like, does that debt just disappear? What happens to it? Maybe he might talk about it in this video.
Because that triggers all of these taxes. It gives us less power in the companies we own. Instead, we like to get cash through a bunch of other ways, using our vast fortune. My favorite trick is to go to the bank and to ask for a loan. Wait, what? I'm a super rich guy. Why do I need a loan?
There we go.
Well, let me show you. The bank will loan me a lot of money if I put my huge investment portfolio up for collateral, meaning they can come after it if I don't pay the loan back or if I default or something. Okay, how much can I get in a loan? Well, according to the bank UBS, I could borrow up to 85% of the value of my investment portfolio, which remember is
I want to know, what's the interest rate on that loan? That's going to be very important. Hopefully he talks about it.
$100 million. So I could potentially get a loan for $85 million. Another bank, Merrill Lynch, says that they will give at least 50% of the value of your portfolio. But regardless, we're talking tens of millions of dollars that I can borrow and spend. And guess what? I pay zero taxes on this money because it's not income. It's technically debt. Okay, wait, but it's a loan. So I'm accruing interest.
There we go.
Right? This isn't free money. I'm going to have to pay it back someday and likely have to pay it back with post-tax money. So it's not free money. What's the deal here? Why am I doing this? Well, according to a lot of good reporting from the Wall Street Journal, people making $100 million or more can get quoted on an interest rate as low as 0.87%.
0.87%? Oh my God. Okay, it's worth it. Because think about it. Your net worth is 100 million. You get, your interest rate is as low as 0.87%, but you get a 10% return on your investment. So you're always in the green. You're always going to make more money than the interest that you pay back, like significantly more money. That's crazy. 0.87% is outrageous.
Super low. In reality, today, under these conditions and with my net worth, let's just be really, really conservative and say that my interest rate on the loan is more like 5.9%. It's a lot higher than 1%. But watch what happens. This allows me to not have to touch my investment portfolio. I don't have to take out that $10 million of stocks and pay a bunch of tax.
Yeah, so he's always got more money because it's like, yeah, if you borrowed 85 million and you're only paying 5.9% interest on 85 million, but you're making 10% a year on 100 million, well, you can easily afford to pay that interest, like easily, and just keep borrowing and paying off the interest and keep borrowing because you're making more money. And then by the end of it, you might have borrowed, well, you would always be worth more money than you borrow, basically. So long as like something doesn't go wrong bad, like an economic crash or something.
And that is growing at 10% a year, way more than the interest on this loan. Now
exactly
watch what happens over time. This is the value of that $10 million left in my portfolio, and this is how much I owe on the loan I took out. That's a nice looking graph. My wealth is growing way faster than the interest on my loan is accruing. So this tax-free debt thing is awesome, and it's one way that I will turn my net worth into spendable cash without having to sell off any of my stocks in my portfolio. Okay, no more tax math for now. I want to go buy some more stuff. It's time to talk about private jets and yachts. Sadly, I can't afford the private jet that I want.
Yeah, 100 million is not going to get you, well, it can get you a lot of private jet, especially if you, once again, I only know this because I work in the luxury sector, and like people be like, how do you know all this stuff? It's really weird, like growing up lower middle class and then being in a luxury space where I kind of know all these things about a lot of these things I'll never be able to afford. But anyway, let me go on. Let's go on the Gulfstream website. There are other manufacturers that make good famous private jets. Gulfstream is just the biggest one. There's like Bombardier. There's so many I could get into. But they have all these different sizes, right? So they have the 800, which is the big one. Let me actually check how many nautical miles it does. Yes, it does 8,200 nautical miles. So you could almost go everywhere. You could almost go everywhere without stopping. Let me Google distance from, I think Australia is maybe the only place you couldn't go. Distance from London to Australia in nautical miles. Okay. So London to Australia nautical miles is 9,200 nautical miles. So that's the only place. Like if you want to go direct from London to Australia, you can't. You have to stop somewhere. But most private jets, to be honest, I think unless, even if I was a billionaire, like unless I was actually using the private jet for commercial use, it makes no sense to incur like the cost of like something this big with the fuel cost and the maintenance cost, because there's like a calculation that essentially whatever the cost of a private jet is, you're going to spend double that cost in maintenance, crew salaries, fuel costs, pilot salaries over a 10-year duration. So that's insane. So yeah, a G800, you definitely cannot afford that if your net worth is 100 million, because this plane alone is close to 100 million. Let me check Gulfstream G800 price. Yeah, so a Gulfstream G800 apparently starts at 72 to 75 million. My knowledge is that no one ever buys it at the starting price. So let's just say in reality, if you're buying a new Gulfstream, most people are buying it around that 80 something, 90 something million mark. So almost 100 million. Some people are going to buy them used. Let's say used could be range depending on how, long it's been used for. Let's say between a 60 to 70 or 75 million range. So yeah, even at, you just can't afford any of that. What I think, unless you have, once again, a commercial use for your plane, the gold standard is something like a G600. A G600, let me see how many nautical miles it does. 6,600 nautical miles. So I just realized it's not on the screen. Okay, so it does 6,600 nautical miles. You can basically go anywhere you need to be, because like once again, London to Australia is like 9,000 something nautical miles. So you could go everywhere on the planet with just one stop. That's like the gold standard. Because if you're on a private jet, you get to choose how long the stop is, really. Once they change the fuel, like refuel, look at a few things, you're back off. So it doesn't really take that much time off your journey. I think no matter how rich you are, you shouldn't ever get a private jet that's bigger than this, unless there's just a corporate use for it. I don't think there's any point in doing that. And even this is like really expensive. Like a Gulfstream G600, let's see. So a Gulfstream G600 new is like about 60 million. You still can't afford that if your net worth is 100 million. But yeah, just wanted to provide some context about the private jets and all that stuff to show you how expensive they really are. They're super expensive.
Womp womp. But this doesn't mean I don't fly private. These days, I can easily just book a jet like this one. It can take me from New York to Miami, and it only costs me $15,000. I can get from LA to Australia for $200,000 on this private jet. $200,000 seems like a lot, but let's compare it to the median net worth of a US household, which is $192,000. The median net worth of a household, not a person, a household. Spending $200,000 on this flight to Australia feels the same for me as
that flight is one way, by the way. Like chartering private jets or just anything to do with private jet is so expensive. $200K one way.
Median household spending $384 for this ticket. Pretty doable for a flight to Australia. Now I can get a better deal on these private flights if I pre-purchase a jet card like this. I fill it up with prepaid private jet hours. Prices range from $5,000 to $7,000 per hour for a small private jet and up to $20,000 an hour for a bigger, longer range jet. Maybe someday I'll own my own private jet, but my budget of $10 million doesn't really get me the fancy one that I want. I'll opt to charter for now. What I can afford is a fairly large staff to run my life. I have 18 full-time staff members, and that's a real number of staff for people of this net worth from a Morgan Stanley report.
Yeah, I can imagine if you're worth 100 million, you would have definitely like a chef, you would have like a maid to clean the house, you would definitely have a driver. Those are like the main ones. Maybe like a gardener. One of my old bosses one time, he had a gardener that used to take care of his dogs as well and take his dogs on walks. What else would you possibly need? Who are all these other staff members I'm seeing on the screen? I mean, everyone needs a everyone needs a doctor at some point. It's not like you have a personal doctor or anything like that. Yeah, I think that's all you would need, to be honest.
I've got a personal driver, I've got a shopper, I've got a butler, a chef, a laundry person.
Okay, you don't need a shopper. I think so because I work in the fashion industry, I have my own taste in clothing and fashion already. I'm never going to need a shopper. It doesn't matter how much I earn. I know all the brands, I know what they release, I know all the designers at all the brands, which almost no one knows unless you work in the industry. Some people just think of like Louis Vuitton, Dior. They don't even know that there's people that are the reason why people are buying these clothes, like the designers behind the clothing. So I wouldn't need something like a personal shopper. I think I have my own taste. I don't need that. But a lot of rich people, they're like rich. The problem with being rich from birth is that you don't have enough time to build taste. Like when you're poor, like me, over time, you're like, I really want that. If I like made more money, I would get that and I'll get that. And then you kind of grow out of it over time. You're like, thank goodness I couldn't afford it. That would have been terrible. So then over time, you just build a taste level that I think people that are born rich just don't have. That's why they need stylists and personal shoppers and all this sort of stuff.
I'm super into security, so I've got a head of security and a bunch of security guards. I have a personal handler who sets up all the logistics of stuff I want to do. Like I want to go yacht shopping this weekend. They're handling all of it. Oh, that's him now. Hey, Brad. Yeah, for the yacht show this weekend, can you make sure I get some VIP tenders? No, the chicken ones. Oh, and I almost forgot, my most important staff members are the financial and legal experts who find the most clever ways to reduce how much taxes I have to pay. Which, my wealth manager, Jeff, keeps selling off all my stocks at a loss, and we're like losing money. Jeff, what are you doing back there?
Don't worry, Scott. This is called a wash sale and I know what I'm doing. You get back to yacht shopping.
Loss harvesting, wash sale. I don't understand it all. Jeff does though. Anyway, back to yacht shopping. Wow, look at these yachts. I'm actually sad to discover that I'm on the lower end of
Wait, what is that?
ultra wealth.
What is a wash sale? Wait, let me just Google that quickly. A wash sale is a US tax. Yeah, this is probably why I don't know where it is. Being based in the UK. A US tax rule violation where an investor sells a security at a loss and acquires the same or a substantially identical security within a 61-day window, 30 days before or after the sale date. The primary consequence is that the realized loss cannot be used to offset capital gains or income for the current tax year. Interesting. It was enforced by the IRS to prevent investors from claiming artificial tax losses while effectively maintaining their investment position. Okay, but what happens if you just get it outside of that 61-day window? I guess there's a very specific reason why they've specified within a 61-day window, because that was like the issue they were having most of the time. But that's interesting. I've never heard of that.
My yacht is actually not that fancy. It's not a super yacht, that's for sure. It looks more like this. It costs a little over $1 million. I might splurge and get this guy. It costs more like $6 million, but this is...
Yeah, for $1 million, you can't really get like a substantial yacht, to be honest. I think if you're going to spend $1 million, instead of getting a yacht, you should get like a really fun speedboat or something like that.
Still pretty entry level. Because at this point, yes, I've got loads of money. I can buy and travel and live how I want. But what separates me from the big dogs who we're about to see is yachts and private jets, but also influence in society. I do some donating. I donate a bunch of money.
This video is so good. It's like, you get to a certain point where you have so much money. To me personally, I think once you pass 10 million, like in net worth, you're basically there. Where you have so much money that you can, within reason, do everything you want. The only thing that changes, like the more money you make, okay, instead of flying business class, you fly first class, and then you start flying private, and then you own your own private jet. It's all the same. It's all luxury. It's all traveling in like excessive comfort, living like a VIP every time you travel. And then in terms of like boats, your yachts or boats get bigger. I'm personally not the biggest yachting person. I don't think if I was rich, I'd ever own a yacht, to be honest. A private jet I probably would, because I travel a lot. Maybe that's because of my job, because I'm a journalist. But then if I made that much money, would I make it being a journalist? Probably not. That's probably why I'm not going to be rich ever. But yeah, so just get to a point, I think, of wealth where you just have to decide, where does it end? Because if it never ends, if you're constantly just trying to consume more and more and more, I think it just never ends, and that's a bit tiring.
To politics. I gave $900,000 to a PAC that supports the candidates that I hope will win. I also belong to the invite-only Aman Club, which I had to pay a $200,000 initiation fee for. My membership fee is $15,000 a year, and I get to rub shoulders with people way richer than me, like Bill Gates, and even the Kardashians show up every once in a while. But this isn't real influence. I'm kind of paying for access. It's nothing like we're gonna see once we cross the $1 billion mark. Hey, since we're talking about money, can we take a minute to make sure that this video makes money so that our team can continue to work and our company can keep growing so we can keep making videos? That's why we have sponsors. Thank you, NordVPN, for sponsoring today's video. NordVPN
Love
used to just be
NordVPN,
a
but
VPN where you can connect to the internet via another. Nord also has a dark web monitor. Sounds kind of complicated.
$1 billion. Forbes says that there's about
Yeah, 1 billion, outrageous amount of money. Like I said, if you're getting a 10% annual return on your money, it's 100 million every year, and that compounds. So that 100 million the first time is now, if your portfolio is now worth 1.1 billion, then that compounds into 110 million, and it just keeps compounding. Insane amounts of money. Like, it's not necessary for anyone to have that much money. It just isn't.
Hi, my name is Javier. I was a moderately wealthy guy for a while, but I randomly wrote a $200,000 check to a couple of young guys in Silicon Valley who had a startup idea. They gave me 4% equity in their company, and then their company blew up and is now worth $80 billion. After some dilution, my $200,000 check is now worth $1 billion. That's my net worth. So how do I get liquid cash to spend from my vast fortune? Well, I don't want to sell any of my stake in the tech company I invested in because I have voting rights. I can control how it is. In fact, like Scott, I don't want to sell any of my portfolio for cash. Instead, I will generate money other ways. I'll go back to the old debt trick that we saw with Scott.
Risky. So what makes this risky though, even though it's really smart in terms of not paying taxes, is that if all your money is invested into that company and the company crashes, that means all your net worth is gone, but then you still have this loan. Then you have to file for bankruptcy because obviously you can't afford to pay for the loan. And the crazy thing about that is, if you file for bankruptcy, they repossess everything you own, right? And like try to sell it to pay off the debt. Now, I always wonder, once again, I'm not rich enough to look into these things. If I was, I would have the answer to these. And if you're watching and you have the answer, definitely let me know. But is there a way to separate some of the assets from your personal self so that when you file for bankruptcy, like your house or your cars or whatever, they're in like the name of a different business? So they're not allowed to actually use it as like collateral. I wonder how that works.
Even if I get a loan that's 2% of my vast portfolio, I'm looking at $20 million of tax-free cash, all without having to touch my portfolio, which continues to grow in the market at 10% a year. That $20 million that I didn't have to take out of my portfolio is just in the market, is growing nice and fast. And look, after 5 years, my portfolio has grown way more than the interest on this loan. I can easily pay back the loan right now and still have extra to spare. Okay, so let's talk houses. Where do I live? Of course, New York City, where there's more billionaires than anywhere else in the world. I live up on the Upper East Side. Look at this beautiful home. 6 bedrooms, 17,000 square feet Manhattan apartment. It cost me $57.5.
New York is a really strange city. Like I always compare it to London because obviously I was born in London, grew up in London. It's so strange. So like New York is really dirty. Like disgustingly dirty. There's a lot of rats, there's like people's trash cans on the streets and stuff like that. But it's so fun though. New York is so much fun. I think even more fun than London. So London is definitely cleaner, but there's always events going on in New York. There's always stuff happening, it seems, every time I'm there. But my, oh my, is it expensive. Like New York, I feel like my money just disappears. Like New York is insane in terms of like you have to make good money there to survive.
$1 million. This was actually 2 huge multi-million-dollar houses that they combined into one. Just cause. It's got a pool with my favorite inspirational quotes on the wall, a basketball court on the roof, but this is not my only home. It is one of 7 that I own, including my home in Aspen, in Lake Garda, Dubai, St. Bart's, and of course, downtown Paris. And look, I finally own a private jet. Yes! No more chartering or...
Yeah, if your net worth is a billion, you can afford basically any private jet you want.
Prepaid flight cards. I've got my own private jet, and it is sick. Look at this thing.
Yeah, that's a Bombardier Global 7500. That's like a really expensive private jet. Let me Google the price of that. I think they actually just launched... I know way too much about private jets. I think they just launched a new one. Let me check. So the Bombardier 7500 is 73 million to 81 million. So let's just call that 90 to 100. But if I'm not mistaken, they just launched the 8000, which apparently is supposed to be one of the fastest private jets in the world, if not the fastest private jet. They were talking about it being like, the supersonic. So it has a top speed of Mach 0.95, and it's the world's fastest business jet and fastest civil aircraft since the Concorde, which is insane. So this is how much I know about private jets, and this private jet literally just came out like not that long ago. Oh, they have a range map to show you like wherever you live. So I'm in London. So in London, if I lived in London with the Bombardier Global 8000, I can reach everywhere on the map apart from Sydney in one flight, basically, which is insane. But once again, like I said, planes this big, they're very unnecessary. You don't need this unless it's for corporate reasons. If you're an individual, I don't care how rich you are, you don't need a plane that big. You just don't. Like, you don't have a family of 25. Like, you don't need a plane that big.
Cost me $75 million, and I have to pay $3 million a year just to maintain it. Like, I have to pay $135,000 just to store it in a hangar. I pay $600,000 a year on fuel and $45,000 just on...
I feel like a Bombardier 7500 costs more than $3 million a year on maintenance. Like, between hangar fees, pilots, fuel, especially if you're flying a lot. That just the fuel alone, air hostess, like food that you put in planes normally is like way more expensive. It's like marked up. The people that sell food for planes is crazy marked up. Same thing with yachts, to be fair. So no, I feel like you'd spend more than $3 million a year.
Like basic maintenance. Oh, and I have a full-time pilot and crew. I spend over $700,000 just to keep them retained as my full-time flight attendants. And I finally can buy a respectable yacht. Like, look at this one. It's 131 feet long. It's got a pool and a hot tub on the deck. It can carry 11 guests and 9 crew members. And like my PJ, I have to pay a full-time crew to run this thing year-round, even though I only use it a few times a year. My vacations look pretty similar to Scott's. A lot of expensive VIP access, but just a little more elevated. Like, I paid $3 million to watch the Super Bowl in this suite with Taylor Swift and a bunch of other rich people. The difference between me and Scott is I get invited to stuff that I don't even have to pay for because we're kind of all a little bit post-money at this point. Like the Monaco...
Yeah, so sometimes you don't even need to be rich to have that kind of access, but I know what he's talking about. For you to be worth $1 billion, you're probably so influential in whatever field of work you're in that people will just start inviting you to stuff because your friends are probably going to be the people that organize the Formula One Grand Prix, or you're going to be friends with the CEO of a yacht company, so they just invite you to the yacht event. They're like, yeah, take this yacht for a spin for the week. That's just kind of what happens when you're that rich. But I think on my level, as someone that's like working class, making like working class wages, you still have access. Like, I have access to things that people that pay money, like for example, I work in the fashion industry. There are VIP customers. There are customers that spend $100,000 a year on like Dior, and they would never get into a Dior show because there are richer people that spend millions a year on Dior. So those are the ones that get in the show. But I get into the Dior show because I'm fashion press. So even without being rich, there are things that you can have access to if you're influential in your industry, and you're important to the ecosystem, where you can go to those things for free. And yeah, you don't have to pay. Because I travel a lot for my work, being a journalist, and I've been able to see the world, and I don't make that much money. So but I just have access to these things. And sometimes people book me on like business class. It's weird because like you don't make money, but then when a luxury brand is flying you somewhere to cover something, it's a luxury brand. So they have to kind of keep that mystique. So of course they put you on business class. I've stayed in hotels like the Kimpton in Paris. It's insane. Like the St. Regis in Florence. So there are levels to it, but you can have this kind of access without being a billionaire for sure.
Yacht show, they have an exclusive opening day. Scott was paying $2,200 for a ticket, but I'm one of the 200 people that they just invited to the VIP experience. And in fact, where Scott's vacations were about lavish, opulent...
Even another thing I just remembered, right? So currently I'm a Spotify VIP. because I do some stuff for Spotify, meaning when you're a Spotify VIP, at least in my case, I don't know what it is like in other countries, I have access to go to any concert in the UK. So all I do, I have a contact at Spotify. If Kendrick Lamar comes to London, which he did, I reach out to them. I ask them for VIP tickets. They send it. I go to the concert VIP. So it's kind of, there's a way to, there is a way. You don't have to be a billionaire. There's like ways to get this kind of access without being rich. But you kind of just have to be a bit more savvy, which I think, once again, when you're rich, I feel like when you're brought up rich, you learn at a young age that you can buy your way out of everything and you can buy your way into anything that you want. So someone who's born rich, their brain's first way of thinking is, can I buy my way into this thing? Whereas someone like me that doesn't have a lot of money, my brain goes, how do I use charisma and just like competence to find my way into the same rooms, right? So then someone like me, if I was rich, I have all that information plus the money. So yeah, because I see a lot of people that make YouTube videos and they're not very experienced, or they're like quite young. They're like 16 making videos about stuff like this. So they don't actually realize how many things that you don't have to be rich to do.
Hotels and experiences, I have kind of a different vibe. I care mostly about privacy and security. In fact, the places I stay look a lot more like this from the street. Unassuming, not drawing any attention. But behind these walls, I've got everything I need for my vacation.
Yeah, a lot of houses in Paris are like that, where the way the street is designed is so that every house kind of looks the same, but behind one of the big gates is a whole like mansion. I really love how it's designed. I'm very sure though, like criminals in Paris probably are starting to figure out where the mansions are. I mean, you can check the maps the same way that he did here, but it's just kind of cool that that's how it works.
Security team flew in a few days earlier to secure the property, and then I arrive with my butler, my chef, even my personal doctor is on site. I've got a dog walker who I pay to just hang out with my dog, and of course my luxury travel coordinator who just zipped into town to connect with the brands she's been communicating with. They're planning to come to my villa to set up my own personal store in one of the mini bedrooms, so that I can browse the latest fashion without leaving my villa. By the way, that's a real example from our reporting. A family who did this during one of their vacations and ended up spending $1.5 million on their little in-home designer store during their vacation. In fact, I want to super clarify that all of these examples are based on real reporting, real examples from our interviews with people who work with the ultra-rich. Many of them don't want to appear and be quoted in this video, but we're grateful that they let us in on some of these lifestyle details of how people live and travel at this wealth level. Anyway, I'm Javier, and at this point, it's hard to know what to spend my money on that Scott can't. Like, we can both buy a $91,000 shirt, which sales tax alone on this puppy is like $8 grand, $9 million painting. There's a few things that are out of reach for Scott that I can buy, maybe like.
And this is what I was saying, like, okay, cool, 1 billion is like significantly more than 100 million, but 100 million or higher, you just have so much money. I don't think your life really improves between like anything higher than what your net worth already is. Apart from if you're just the kind of person that's never satisfied and you always have to be in a bigger place. I personally am not like that.
This nearly $3 million bottle of whiskey. What I can do at this level is pay for hyper exclusive experiences, like paying my favorite band, the Eagles, to fly in and play me a show. I'll pay millions of dollars for this. And in fact, they've negotiated only playing Hotel California one time, but it was totally worth it. And yes, that $6 million private concert is a real example too. Anyway, let's go back to security, because now that I'm a billionaire, I'm a little more well-known, and my security team has grown, but I'm also starting to get a little more paranoid, thinking about how I'm planning for something apocalyptic. We rich people think about this a lot. What if we lose it all? My vast wealth is...
Oh yeah, all these rich people that have all these like crazy ass bunkers and stuff. I think that's what he's going to talk about. Let's see.
In the market, in the economy. And if order breaks down, it could be worth nothing.
So I'm going to invest in some backup plans. A bunch of land in upstate New York. And in fact, I'm even working on a bunker. I love bunkers. This thing's got food storage, a decontamination shower, a high-tech air filtration system, 4 bedrooms, a hair salon, a shooting range. Listen, I'm not a prepper, but you know, just in case, and I've got the money to do it, why wouldn't I? I'm worth $1 billion, so at this point I kind of have an army of tax professionals optimizing my wealth so I can pay as few taxes as possible. And Congress just passed some legislation that's really helping me out on this. At this level, I start to get weird and creative with my money. Maybe I'll buy a hotel chain, or maybe I'll invest in bubbles. No, not those kind of bubbles. Bubbles is the...
Once again, I think at that level of wealth, it's just so much money. I think it just becomes like, what do you even do with it? It's like, you can afford, if you're worth $1 billion, you can afford everything on the planet. And it's just to the point, it's just like, what do you buy? It's like, you just start investing in more shit because you can't spend that money. Like, not $1 billion, but even like, we're just talking about the returns, which is 100 million. You can't spend it every single year. Like, once you buy the houses and properties once, you're not buying those properties again. Once you buy the private jet once, you don't need to buy that for about a 10 to 15 to 20 years, depending how well your maintenance is. So it just gets to a point, it's like, I actually don't have anything to do with my money anymore. I'm living the most lavish lifestyle and it's not making a dent. Let's just start investing in all kinds of shit.
Name of my thoroughbred horse that I bought for $3 million. I paid millions of dollars, and then I had to, of course, build a home and a bunch of stables for Bubbles, and I had to like get a trainer and feed and care and medical attention. It's a lot of money, but it's a business expense. And Bubbles is a depreciating asset on my balance sheet. I'm supposed to try to make a profit off of Bubbles, but really I'm doing it because on race day, I love showing up to watch him race. Get to hang out with my friends, spend some time at the track, throw a big party, and watch Bubbles race. Come on, boy, come on. Bubbles. Oh, he lost again. And yes, I'm losing a lot of money on Bubbles, but honestly, I'm not that stressed because this is more of a hobby, and all of these losses I can write off to lower my tax bill. I'm actually doing this same kind of hobby thing on a much bigger scale. I bought an NBA team. I'm able to write these players off as depreciating assets, even though the team is growing and making money. All of this helps my tax rate be lower than the players who play for me, and even lower than the guy serving beer in the stands. ProPublica did a great analysis.
See, this is exactly what I was talking about when you have this much money. It's just like, what do you spend it on? It's just, you just start buying basketball teams and you start buying football teams and it just becomes what is your passion, and you just start buying up shit.
On that, by the way. But yeah, anyway, all of this is legal. Like, I'm not breaking any rules. And honestly, it's really fun. And look, I have the best seats in the house. Oh, and by the way, I still pay a lot of taxes. My businesses pay corporate taxes and income taxes and payroll taxes and property taxes and sales taxes. I contribute massively in dollar terms, and my businesses generate huge amounts of tax revenue and jobs, and I took a risk in building my wealth. And when I sell or die, the government takes another giant cut. I'm paying plenty. And in fact, I'm paying so much that I'm gonna use some of my influence to try to change that. I've got my eye on a Senate candidate. I've contributed $20 million to his campaign to get him reelected, and he won. Yes! It's a few months later, and Congress is working on a bill. It could have big ramifications for my business and therefore my net worth. And so I'm gonna call in my favor to the senator who I donated so much money to help reelect. I need him to insert 8 words into this massive bill to allow my business to qualify for a huge deduction. He does it. Last second, and I just saved hundreds of millions of dollars in taxes. 20 million bucks to get this guy elected in exchange for hundreds of millions of dollars in savings? That sounds like a good investment. Thanks, Congress. My financial advisors have been telling me that it's time for me to not just be a rich person, but to become a philanthropist, to give away my money and to save some taxes in the process. How about, let's see, what can I give away? Well, I've got this really nice art collection. An appraiser said that it was worth
Philanthropy is a very interesting thing because it's like, giving money away is good if the money is going to a good cause. But then it's like, if you're worth $1 billion, 10% return on your investment, 100 million. If you go the loan route, you can loan up to 85% of your net worth. So you can literally loan a tax-free 800 million. It's just, and then you give away 2 million when you're going to make that money back like way more than that every single year. I don't know. It's just like, it's kind of, you do the philanthropy to kind of give yourself brownie points, but you're not really, because it's such a small percentage of your money, you don't feel it. So it's almost like, I question the intention and the fact it's also a tax write-off.
$30 million. I'm going to donate this, but I'm not going to donate it to like a public gallery. I'm going to donate it to my own family's private nonprofit foundation. And
even worse, donating money to your own private foundation. Something I need to clarify, because this confuses people a lot. Just because like foundations or charities or whatever are not for profit does not mean that, it just means they don't make a profit. But the money still goes somewhere. And if you're high up in these organizations, there's people that work for UNICEF and like all these things, and they make loads of money. Like the people at the top. It's just like the organization itself is not for profit. So I think people always have this thing where, oh, these organizations are not for profit. But people that work for these, like, if you know anyone, I mean, I know quite a lot of people that have worked in like those NGOs like UNICEF and stuff. They make insane amounts of money. So it's just funny when he was like, yeah, I'm going to donate money to my own private foundation.
as long as I make this art accessible to the public, I can write off the $130 million from my taxes over several years. Okay, so I have to make all this art accessible to get the tax write-off. What counts as accessible? Luckily, the IRS isn't super specific, so I've decided to open up the art room to the public, but just in kind of random 2-hour slots that you need a lottery to get an access to. There'll be only guided tours on random Wednesdays, no regular hours, no self-guided tours. That's accessible, right? I'm taking the tax write-off. That work, guys?
Nice approach.
Yes. And yes, that is a real example of philanthropy really being vanity projects with no public benefit. Thanks again to ProPublica.
Yeah, exactly what I was saying earlier.
Okay, moving on. Now, there are billionaires who give to real causes that benefit real people, who give away a large amount of their fortune to actually change the world for the better. But it's also very common for billionaires to use foundations and philanthropy as tax shelters and vanity projects. And the IRS doesn't really come down on these people very often. Oh, I just got an email saying I'm going to Switzerland. Because I donated to the presidential campaign, the president is assigning me to be the ambassador to Switzerland. And I know the president said that he wouldn't be appointing his donors to these types of roles, but here I am. Seems like a lot of us donors are getting appointed. This is great. Let's get the jet ready to go to Switzerland. So you can see that my fortune at this point buys me anything I want, but it's actually starting to be more and more about buying influence in society and politics. But this is just the beginning. Let's see what happens when we 100x this.
Yeah.
Okay, things are about
so
to get
100 billion.
because we're about to.
This will be interesting because I can't even mentally picture the kind of lifestyle that a centibillionaire lives. It's just so outrageous. Like that amount of money is just so outrageous. It's like, I can't even fathom it. Let's just watch. I just can't even fathom.
100x this pile to go from 1 billion to $100 billion. There's less than 20 people who have this much net worth or more. They're almost all Americans who started technology companies. Elon Musk, the world's richest man, has anywhere from 4 to 5 times this much, depending on the day. And at this point, there's no way I can convince you how much money this is. Like, you would have to combine the incomes of over 7.5 million Americans toiling away, earning the median salary of $63,000 a year. 7.5 million people.
That's crazy. But I like how that puts into focus how much money these guys really have.
Earning the amount of money controlled by one guy. Hi, my name is Bradley. I founded a technology company decades ago, and it is now one of the most valuable companies on earth. I still run it actively,
and most of my $100 billion fortune is in the form of a huge amount of stock in this company. How do I even think about where to live? I could go the direction of Indian billionaire Mukesh Ambani and build my own personal 27-story skyscraper, complete with a hanging garden and a 6-floor garage where I can store 168 cars. Or I could collect a portfolio of trophy homes all over the world. I'll buy this one in Florida for $173 million. It's got 33 bedrooms and 39 bathrooms. That is a lot of toilets.
This is when it becomes like, I understand if you're rich, you can afford a 30 plus bedroom house, but it's like, isn't that just stressful? It's like, how can you even remember where all the bedrooms are? That's stressful. That's too much stress. And that's the thing. It's like, just because you can afford it doesn't mean you should buy it.
I'll buy a spot in London, but I'll make sure to buy all the properties around it, so I've got a lot of privacy. That one cost me $202 million. I'll grab a bunch of property along this coastline in Malibu.
Yeah, I guess if you're that rich, yeah, you could just buy all the houses, neighboring houses, just for privacy. That's so excessive.
I'll buy this private golf course next to my 19,000 square foot mansion, even though I don't really play golf. And I'll even pay $86 million for a Zen temple in Japan, because I'm super into Japan. Let's add to the list buying this entire island of Lanai, Hawaii. All in all, my big portfolio of houses around the world adds up to about $2 billion worth of homes. But if I'm like Larry Ellison, whose homes all of those I just mentioned.
And once again, $2 billion is so much money, but it doesn't make a dent. Because when someone is worth 100 billion, 10% return on investment, that means they're making 10 billion back every year. Let's say it's a 5% return on investment, which would be like bad performance. 5% return on investment every year from their net worth, that's a 5 billion amount of money coming in every year. So you're telling me that after you've bought all those islands, all those buildings, you've only spent, not only, but you know what I mean, relatively, you've only spent 2 billion. You have 3 billion left to spend, and then the next year you're going to get another 5 billion. It's like, that's the thing about this level of wealth. It's just, that's how crazy it is.
This isn't even 1% of my net worth. But I don't want to just buy homes. Maybe I want to buy a social media company.
Yeah, that's Elon
I'm really
Musk.
into influence right now, and influencing the media is a great way to influence society. And this is where I can take the loan thing that we talked about earlier to a whole new level. Yes, I could sell a bunch of my stock to get cash to buy this social media company. Or I can do what Elon Musk did and take out a giant loan, billions of dollars, that I don't have to pay taxes on, that is based on my vast fortune. Musk was about to take out a loan of $12.5 billion, but then ended up taking about half that to buy Twitter. And this is what's wild, is the loan thing, at this level, I can plan to just do this forever. I never have to pay off these loans. I never have to sell.
Okay, cool. I think he's going to talk about it. I really want to know what happens when you die. Like, where does this money go? Like, what happens to the debt?
Off any of my stock. I could keep paying down the interest so it doesn't compound, but even if I don't, my fortune grows way faster than this debt accrues. And the real benefit of this happens when I get close to the end of my life. It's been decades. I have all these loans. They've grown, accrued interest. My fortune has grown way faster. And at the end of my life, I could sell a bunch of my portfolio, get a bunch of cash, and pay off all my loans before I die, so I don't leave my children saddled with all my loans. But I don't want to do that, because I would have to pay a huge amount of taxes if I did. And if you haven't noticed, I don't like taxes. My goal now, as I get close to the end of my life, is to set my family up to inherit my vast fortune in the most advantageous way possible. So I max out the gifting exemption. There's like $14 million I can do there, but that's like a drop in the bucket. I'll set up some trusts that technically remove control of my wealth and pays out a certain amount to the named beneficiaries, like my children and grandchildren, over a period of time, potentially forever. But watch this. My portfolio is a vast fortune that is mostly loaded with unrealized gains, meaning this is all money that has grown in the market. I haven't paid taxes on it yet because I haven't taken it out. The moment I take it out, I have to pay taxes. But what I can do is when I die, I can give this giant fortune to my daughter, let's say. And the moment I give it to her, boom, the clock resets.
No, how? Okay, we're gonna need some clarification on how that's possible. How is the debt forgiven? What happened to the inheritance tax, first of all? No. I feel like we need more clarification on that. I need to understand how that works.
Inherits that fortune, and suddenly it's as if she has zero gains.
Nah,
she could sell this
I don't
entire
believe
portfolio
that.
on day one and pay no taxes.
Nah.
Those unrealized, untaxed gains disappear, never to be taxed. And yes, there is a big estate tax that I have to pay when I die, but my army of wealth managers have figured out a way to buy an insurance policy that will pay that tax for me. Anyway, I'm not dead yet. Let's talk about yachts. Because at this point, at $100 billion, I can get the top of the line. Look at this 600-foot long...
Once again, this is why I say, like, being rich, just because you can afford it doesn't mean you should do it. It's like, this yacht is so big, it's not even fun. I just don't know how you could have fun being on a yacht that's so big. It's like, it would take you forever to go between the rooms. It's not homely. It's not... I don't find that nice. I don't find that enjoyable to be on a boat that's just that massive. It's just not intimate. It's not... Yeah, it's personally not my vibe. I don't... Just because you can afford it doesn't mean you should. Like, yeah, I don't see why you would want a boat that big. It's hard to park. You can't dock that boat in many places. You can only dock it in, like, the massive marinas. Like, it's just... I don't get it.
$600 million yacht. This thing has a crew of 80 people. It can cross the Atlantic without refueling. It's got a pool, a helipad, a movie theater, a golf training room, because, you know, I gotta practice my swing when I'm out in the Atlantic. I pay my crew super well. Many of my crew stay on board my yacht for years. Oh, and did I mention that it's not just the yacht? I also have this little shadow barge that follows my yacht around when we're out to sea. It carries extra fuel so we can be out on the water longer. It also keeps some of my car collection. Oh, what's that? You're burning to hear about my car collection? I have 2,000 cars. This giant collection is worth around $200 million.
Once again, with the cars, obviously if you're a car enthusiast, you're a car enthusiast, but like, do you hire someone to make sure that, I guess you can afford it, like to make sure that the engines are running and everything's in tip-top condition, and to clean the cars and to make sure it's not rusting, and to, like, that's just stressful. Just because you can afford it, once again, doesn't mean you should do it. That's stressful.
Kind of my hobby, another real example from this billionaire. And just when I thought I had the top of the line, there's something else I got my eye on. This super yacht airship crossover that's straight out of Star Trek. I want this thing. Especially because the article says that, quote, crossovers can be oodles of fun when done right. I want oodles of fun. My super yacht's starting to look boring because I have to stick to the sea. But with this crossover, I can go anywhere because it literally turns into a blimp and goes onto land, and it costs about $1 billion. And yes, it's got all the bells and whistles, a pool, a sauna, a gym, a helipad, tenders, and a nice big garage for my cars. And yeah, we gotta talk about my private jet. Oh, sorry, private jets. I have 3 of them and they're all huge. My favorite one is this one. This is the ACJ 350. It's got a cabin that's 167 feet long. Over 3,000 square feet of floor space on this sucker. I bought this thing for $360 million. And I spent another
22 hours non-stop flying on that plane is insane. 22 hours non-stop flying. That's crazy. Once again, it's just too big. The plane is just too big. It's like, what do you need? How long do you spend in the air? It just gets to a point where it's just like, what's the point?
$100 million just to renovate the interior because I wanted a spa on board. I mean, totally worth it, right? Oh, and on a more grave note, I had to make a deal with my pilot that in case of the apocalypse, which I think about a lot, I'll let him and his family come with me to my compound. Like if we have to escape, I need to guarantee that I have a pilot to fly me away in case like the mob comes knocking. Where will I fly? Oh, I've got some options. I've got bunkers all over the place. Some of them have airstrips, so I can just fly right to them. My favorite one is in New Zealand, where a lot of us ultra wealthy are burying bunkers.
So many rich billionaires, especially American billionaires, have bunkers in New Zealand. It is quite crazy, actually.
This thing is buried underground. It's got a pantry, a gun room, a surgery station. This thing only cost me $8 million to build. But that's not including the couple $1,000,000 I had to invest in New Zealand for several years to qualify for an investor visa. So they'll like let me into their airspace. My other bunkers include huge pieces of land in Hawaii, where I have a huge full-time staff, including a person who raises my Wagyu cattle. Just like my buddy, Mark Z, he's got one too. We love Wagyu and hydrofoils. When I say and hydrofoils, cut to him on the hydrofoil out in the... We got this, Mark. Okay, but I'm not all doom and gloom apocalyptic. It's just a backup plan. I have hobbies too, but my hobbies have turned into kind of reality bending projects. Like, I want to go to space.
I feel super connected to love.
I want to create my own libertarian nation in the South Pacific. I've got the money to do it. I have like more money than a lot of nations. Or I could throw my money at wild, innovative ideas, like making human brains talk to computers or finding ways for humans to live forever. My security team is now huge, dozens and dozens of professionals, many of them former Navy SEALs. And it's hitting me that at this level, I have so much money, I can actually make a huge impact in the world. I have the ability to give away over $19 billion of my wealth, no strings attached, to help change the lives of underrepresented people like Jeff Bezos' ex-wife did. I could put billions of dollars into eradicating infectious diseases and focusing on improving maternal and child health funding like Bill and Melinda Gates have done.
Yeah, I was going to say the Gates Foundation, they did that.
Lot of power that I have to affect what public health initiatives get done. Or I could pour my philanthropic money into foundations that get me tax benefits and serve my own ventures and are completely controlled by me and my family. I could do either. And my level of influence is not just in the philanthropic causes I can fund. I also rub shoulders with the most influential decision makers in the world. Did I mention that as a part of my real estate portfolio, I've got this huge swath of beach in Florida where I've created an enclave for the rich. It's right next to the president's Florida residence, and it's where I make sure that I rub shoulders with the right people. This election cycle, I'm going to spend almost $300 million on getting my favorite candidate elected to be president. That seems like a lot. Is that legal? Actually, yes. Look, I have a front row seat to the inauguration, and the president is giving me the job I've always wanted, which is taking a chainsaw to the federal government.
This is the chainsaw for bureaucracy. Chainsaw!
Wow, well that was quite the journey. If there's one thing I've learned on my journey from 100 million to $100 billion.
Okay, that was a cool video. Some very interesting things mentioned there and clarified. I still need clarification, please, if you're watching this, about how does that loan disappear? Like how does the loan just disappear when the person dies and then their kids take over the wealth? I need to understand. I don't get how that works. I don't think he clarified that properly. But yeah, that's that video. Thank you very much for watching. Now, the next video, we're going to talk about the hidden costs of luxury cars. So let's talk about this. This is a bit more normal now. Now we're not talking about billionaires and all that sort of crazy stuff. So let's see. This is by a YouTuber, Hemi Muscle.
Let's see how much you need to make to comfortably afford a 2025 BMW M4. My final build came out to around $108,000, but if we multiply this by 7% sales tax, we get a new total of $116,000. After adding the new price of the vehicle, 20% down, financed at 5% for a total of 60 months, we get a total monthly payment of over $1,700. The annual insurance for an M4 is going to be around $6,000, and if we divide this by 12, we'll get $500 a month. Annual maintenance on the M4 is going to be around $5,000 for 5 years, $1,000 per year, so roughly it's going to be around $89 a month. After adding all of this up, we get a crazy monthly payment of over $2,300 a month. And if we multiply this by 10% to find our monthly gross income and multiply it by 12 to find our annual gross income, you should be making around $280,000 to be able to afford this BMW M4 comfortably.
Yeah, so most people buy more car than they can afford. That's just normal. Like, so many people do that. I think it's terrible that people do that. To be honest, my philosophy when it comes to cars is just buy a cheaper car. That's if you need to buy something new, then buy a car that has a 0% APR deal. There are many cars. They won't be fancy, but there are many cars that have that. If you're okay not buying a new car, you can buy a used car from a brand that is known to have reliable cars. So like in the UK, we would have things like the Ford Focus, the Ford Fiesta. These are cars that last years and years and years, right? Things like Toyotas, things like Lexus cars. So you can buy used versions, not going to cost that much up front, and then just drive those into the ground. Because the thing about wealth or wealth building or money or whatever is that you never want to put yourself in a position where you start at square one for something that isn't necessary. A sports car is not a necessity in life to live. So it doesn't make sense. Say you became a high earner and you were making $250K a year. You want to invest your money in a way that 10 years from that point, you're bringing in an income based off the investments that you invested back then. Then you can start to see, based on the income I'm getting from these investments, can I afford this car? Because if you're making $281K a year and you're buying this kind of car, you're just spending all your money, and then 10 years from now, what if like you become too old, you can't work anymore, you have no money, you have no investments, you have no savings? It's a bit silly. It is a bit silly.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel, man. Welcome back to the channel. Today's video was kind of requested, man. I've been getting some messages. People want to know how much these BMWs cost, how much they cost to service. I got some people in the market to buy cars. People don't realize is the maintenance on these cars are outrageous. So we got a guy right here, man. He's getting ready to buy an X5. We're going to find out how much it's going to cost him. And also, guys, we're going to see how much it is to maintain these cars. So let's get into it.
I got a deal for you. I got an X540 2026. It's skyscraper gray, black interior, super well equipped, parking assistance package, premium package, climate comfort package. I got two options for you. The purchase option, it's going to be over your $800 a month. It's like $930. But BMW has an owner loyalty lease program special for 39 months. The one question I didn't ask you is on the lease how many miles you would need, but this is worked up at 10,000 miles a year, $770 a month. No money down, just first payment due when you sign up.
What do I got? 59,000 on my, what year do I have it?
2021.
So 2021 is 4 years.
So 4 years, so 60,000 divided by 4, 15,000 miles a year. So if I did a 15,000 mile a year lease, that jumps the payment up to $825. But because we already had that conversation, I know what you're going to say.
There's no way I can sell that.
I'll give you $1,000 more for your car and keep your payment at $794. 15,000 miles a year, starting over with warranty.
All right, let me call you right back.
Man, that's the least. See, we bought ours used. We're nowhere near these $700-800 a month payments. This
$800 a month on a lease is outrageous. You should not, unless you have like serious money, you should not be spending that kind of money on a lease. That's $10,000 a year on a lease. Yeah, no. Because that's $10,000 on a year on a lease. And then you obviously have to pay for insurance. That's not included. Then you have to pay for maintenance. That's not included. No.
It's crazy right here. I mean, I know these cars are expensive, and this is at least 15,000 miles a year. You go over that mileage, you're going to pay. One good thing he did do is he's actually leasing the car. I recommend you lease these luxury cars because these things, once the warranty is up, it costs an arm and a leg to repair.
Agreed, but the reason why I don't like leasing, I just think if you can't afford the car, just don't lease it. Just stay away from it. Just buy a used car and just run that to the ground. Like, you'll save so much money. cars are not necessity. Like having all these luxury cars is not a necessity. So long as the car takes you from point A to B and your back is not broken by the time you get to your destination, I think it's fine. I think people are just, for some reason, feel like it's a need to have like really fancy leather seats and massaging seats. Like none of this stuff is necessary.
To find out right here.
Let me put on my shades because I can't be taken serious at this moment, y'all, before I start crying. So, just got my battery done, right? My front and my back brakes are also going out. Front brakes, $3,500, $11.40.
Woo!
Back brakes, $2,500, $13.96.
Damn, what kind of brake? So you have like carbon ceramic brakes. What kind of brakes are those? Those are expensive. Damn.
I could have those backwards. All in all, $5,500. I want to rip
Oh
this
my
up.
goodness.
What car is that?
$5,500 for the brakes. Now, y'all really sure you want these luxury cars? That is crazy. That is outrageous. Now, I know some people gonna say, "Oh, I can take it to my man. I can take it to my own mechanic. I can do my own brakes." I mean, you could do that. But guys, if your car is under warranty and they find out you took your car to some little off-brand little shop to get those brakes done,
yep,
and something happened, warranty is voided off the brake. Warranty is voided off the brake.
So I guess I won't be going anywhere that requires me to use my brakes. Come on, baby. See ya. See ya. See ya.
Oh, I see what you're trying to do. Yeah, uh-huh.
Just get in. Just get in.
Okay, so that's her fault. So I think this is like an American problem. For my American viewers, let me know. I think in America, the reason why you guys spend a lot on like brakes and tires is because Americans drive these massive ass SUVs and trucks. And when you drive an SUV or a truck, first of all, it's wear and tear on your brakes, it's wear and tear on your tires. It's harder to brake, so it takes a lot more force to brake because of the weight of the SUV. In Europe, we don't really use a lot of SUVs. We use estates like wagons, what Americans call wagons, sedans. So we don't, because I'm like, why does it cost so much? But yeah, we don't put that much strain on our brakes, I think, compared to Americans because of the size of the cars.
Just get in. Y'all, they playing today.
That's crazy. But yeah, man. And I know from experience, guys, when we went to get our brakes done, it was $2,000. And I had a 2019 X5, but it was certified. $2,000. That was it. That was the last time we got a brake job done on that truck. That thing, we sold that truck immediately.
5 comp back, and I paid a lot of money to get this car back.
Woo! $8,726 BMW repair bill. I need to know what was in this repair bill. That's insane.
$8,000. Jeez.
So here's my repair bill. $8,726.
What's that? 5,000.
The reason why my repair bill was $8,726 is because
crazy.
my massage seat broke and my AC stopped working. Right, my AC stopped working due to my evaporator leaking. If you have a G chassis BMW, mainly a M5, a 540, 530, X5, any G chassis BMW, the evaporator is known to going up. That job alone was $6,721 because they had to rip apart my whole dash. Then my massage seat went out. The massage seat was the remaining cost. I only had to pay $2,225 due to my warranty covering $6,471 of it.
See, he lucky. He had a warranty, but he still had to pay $2,000. I mean, unless you got it like that. I mean,
with a warranty is insane. Like spending that much money, and this is why, guys, you have to be rich to I think people underestimate how rich you actually have to be to drive these cars, because people are willing to, live what we call hand to mouth just so that they can drive luxury cars. You cannot afford that shit. Like, you need to be able to drive a luxury car, you need to be so rich that when that $8,000 repair bill comes, you just don't care, because you can afford to just pay it off and not think about it. If you're not in that position, don't buy a luxury car, basically.
I'm assuming that if you buying a car like that, you have money set to the side to pay for repairs, because you're always going to have to pay something. Whereas
Exactly.
Deductible, or whatever the case may be, you always gonna have to pay something. He still had to pay over $2,000 just for them to cover the other $6,000. That's crazy, man. This is stuff people don't tell you. You see them on social media, everybody, you know, styling and profiling, smiling, buying a car from CarMax. Hey, better make sure you got a warranty or you're going to be mad. You're going to be a sad puppy.
Service my car here at BMW. I want to break down the cost with you guys just so you know how much it is to own a BMW M4 and service it every once in a while. Here's our beauty.
It's nice, man.
New tires.
Pretty car.
Just got washed.
That's my color right there.
Damn.
Too.
As I was sharing, the cost was about $1,600 to replace 2 tires, get an engine oil.
Okay, in the grand scheme of things, $1,600 for 2 tire replacements on a like luxury car like that, like a fast car. That's not actually too crazy, to be fair. That's not. It might sound like a lot of money, but relatively to a lot of cars in that class, that's not too bad.
Changed my air filter and a bunch of other miscellaneous things that this car needed, and it shows you that if you're not ready for these expenses to come up out of nowhere, do not get a BMW M4.
That's right. Facts right there. Facts. See, they some pretty cars, and you know they fun to drive, but you have to be ready for the repairs. And they don't mind selling them to you. They will sell you those cars in a heartbeat. But the reason why I'm making these videos is because I'm seeing a lot of young guys, especially on YouTube. That's the new wave, the BMWs, but you see them, they buy.
So on YouTube, I think it depends though. So if you're, let me switch to a bigger one. Yeah, so if you are making content around your BMW, so there's a lot of content creators that make a lot of money. There's a guy in the UK, Michael Schomburger or something like that, but he's from Manchester, I think. He bought a BMW M3, or was it an M3 or M4 Touring? But anyway, he made a lot of money and he basically created a whole YouTube audience off of that. So I think it just depends how you use it. If you can make a way to drive that car into the ground and make content and recoup your money that way, I think it makes sense. But if you have no way of doing that, then yeah, waste of money.
They make a couple of videos. Next thing you know, they're gone off YouTube because you can't drive those BMWs like you drive those Dodges, the Hellcats, and Scat Packs. When you drive them BMWs hard like that, you got to get the oil changed frequently. Stuff going to break on them, especially now because they got all those electronics. Everything is digital, all these screens and all that stuff. And you want to drive these cars like they drove them back in the day. But you got to remember, back in the day, the muscle cars and all the fast cars, they didn't have all those electronics. All you had was a manual shift, and that was it. It was on your way. But now everything is ran by a computer. So if something go wrong, you sure.
BMW's unreliable or just expensive to maintain?
Both. BMW, I don't know if you guys know this, stands for break my wallet because they are not reliable and they're extremely expensive to maintain. I'm a big believer that if you're going to own a BMW, 0 to like 100,000 miles is a fair aspect. You're still going to have to do certain repairs and obviously normal maintenance. After 100,000 miles, BMWs become significantly less reliable. Now, don't get me wrong, the owner, the maintenance of it, how you repair your vehicle, etc., will contribute to the longevity of your BMW. It's rarer to see a BMW exceed 150,000 miles without a ton of issues or light from a dash. Really rare to see them go past 200,000 miles. Don't get me wrong, we've got 2 BMWs with over 200,000 miles in the shop right now, so it can be done. It's just
Isn't that an indictment on how badly the cars are built though, if it can't go past 200k miles? The Porsche 911s perform better than BMWs, like M cars. They're faster, they drive better, the steering is better. Yet the Porsche 911s, so many of them go past 200,000 miles. Doesn't that just mean that they're badly engineered?
general consensus when you look at the 10-year route of lifespan of a BMW, they're not as reliable. I would make the argument they're one of the most unreliable vehicles out there.
Agreed.
But they're one of the funnest and nicest cars to drive because of how luxurious items are with that particular car. So give a little, and it takes a lot.
Yeah, I agree, man. They're really nice and fun cars to drive, but it just costs a little more to maintain. So it's more to it than just going in there and they're Excuse me. So you gotta keep that in mind that it's gonna cost you a pretty penny to keep the maintenance up on that car. So as long as you're ready for that, go for it. But I say lease the car. If you're just an everyday person, you just like to just cruise around in it, lease it. You know what I'm saying? That way everything is pretty much covered. I mean, except wear and
But just make sure you can actually afford the lease though. But yeah, that was an interesting video. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Let me know what you think about just luxury car purchases and how people spend money on luxury cars and kind of how much luxury car you can afford and kind of what's your philosophy in terms of when you buy luxury cars. So this video that we're reacting to is by a YouTube channel called Good Work, and the title of the video is Can Money Buy Happiness? Now, I haven't watched the video, so we're watching it for the first time, but if I was to guess before this video starts, so the thing about money is that I think money does buy happiness to a certain point where it's diminishing returns, then you have to find happiness elsewhere. I've forgotten statistically what that figure is, but there is like a figure where like once you've taken care of all your basic needs, money actually can't buy happiness. And if anything, the more you start to make, the more stress you have, and therefore the less happy you are. But let's watch.
Can money buy happiness? It's a question that's vexed humans for centuries. From the discontented kings of old to the sad, rich ambition demons surrounding me here in Manhattan. But no matter how many times it's posed in clickbait articles and pop science podcasts, we simply can't seem to find an answer. But I'm about to change that. I'm here at the happiest place on earth, Harvard Business School. I was in this Ivied oasis to meet the man who both wrote a book and talked the TED on money and happiness.
Michael Norton is a professor here at Harvard Business School and a leading behavioral economics researcher. Let's see if he can teach me how to behave. Michael, great to have you.
I'm sorry, this guy's tone of voice is too funny, and then the way he looks at the camera, that was funny.
All right, or thank you for having us. Rather.
Yeah. With my characteristically smooth exchange of pleasantries out of the way, it was time to turn the screws on Professor Norton and get my answer.
How much money do I need to be happy?
How much do you have?
Not enough.
It's a tricky question, actually. So it's hard to know the exact dollar amount, but what we do know is when we ask people how much they think they need, they typically say 2 to 3 times as much as I have right now. But the weird thing is we can ask people who have $50,000 and they say, if I only had 2 to 3 times more, I'd be perfectly happy. But we can also ask people who have $3 million and they also say, yeah, if I only had 2 to 3 times as much, I'd be happy.
Michael was saying a lot of numbers, that's for sure, but I still wasn't hearing a solid answer. I decided to give him one more try before I used my power to dismiss him with voiceover and move on to another interview with a smarter guy.
So lots of people have looked into the correlation, just straight up, how does money correlate with happiness? And one of the things that we did was we tried to do experiments. So we tried to give people money and have them go do stuff and then see which thing makes people happy and which thing doesn't make people happy. So we were trying to get at not so much how much you make in a year and how happy you are, but what you do with it. The first thing people think to do with money is spend it on themselves. And the problem is if you look at the data, it's not that spending money on yourself makes you unhappy. It's really just there's not a strong relationship. If we say, have you ever felt happy when you give to charity or give to someone? People say, yeah. And then you say, have you done it lately? And they say, no.
What is a harder concept for business school students to grasp, happiness or giving people money?
I couldn't help but feel like me and Professor Norton simply weren't on the same page. I was explicitly asking him just how much money I needed to make to finally achieve happiness, and he wouldn't stop talking about giving money away. It made no sense. I needed to find someone with as impressive of credentials, but who would actually give me a hard number on which to set my sights.
There's a very famous paper that concluded that there was this plateau between money and happiness beyond around $75,000.
Now we're talking.
Okay, so 75,000. That's the number, because I know I've heard about that study somewhere. Okay, cool.
Viewers are getting down to crunch time for Christmas gifts. But if you've been procrastinating, never fear. Daddy Dan is here to save you. It's just what I do. May I present to you Aura frames. They don't all come with this photo. Aura frames are nifty digital frames that look classy as hell and help you keep in touch with your loved ones from afar. An Aura frame would be a fantastic gift at any time of the year, but quite frankly, I genuinely do. Matt Killingsworth is a senior fellow at the University of Pennsylvania's Wharton School of Business, where he runs one of the world's largest studies on human happiness. Wharton is an institution of great history, and more importantly, a place where many people learn how to accumulate wealth until happiness oozes out of their pores and the pores of their progeny.
I ran this really big study that had a fantastic measure of kind of the levels of happiness that people experience, and I saw no evidence for a plateau at all. It just keeps going up. Modestly, but very steadily.
These squirrely academics wouldn't stop overcomplicating the issue, but I could play their game too. You found that money and happiness have a logarithmic relationship. Is that different than a polyamorous relationship?
Maybe you could combine them.
I've tried.
So maybe you just need to earn more money, and then you can see what you can put together.
But when you describe a logarithmic relationship, what is that? Is this what you're talking about?
Yes.
Or? Okay.
Yes.
It's a big word for me.
So if you plot this out, you could imagine happiness. And then you have...
Yeah, I know exactly how this graph is going to look. Money, right?
Money.
Yeah.
A logarithmic basically means
it's going to be...
we're going up in proportional increments. So you could imagine each of these hash lines being a doubling of income.
I can imagine it's going to start straight. So as your income goes up, so it's going to go that way. As your income goes up, your happiness, and then it plateaus, basically. Simple,
what we used to
graph.
think was happening is that happiness rises up to around this level.
Yep.
Happiness rises,
and then it plateaus.
And then it doesn't really improve.
Yeah.
And essentially what I found is that this part is basically right, but instead it just keeps going up in a straight line.
So
that's not true. I don't agree with that. I don't agree that, forever, the more money you make, the more happy you are. I don't think that's true.
So people here in general are a lot happier than people here.
They're happier on average. So, I'm squishing all of this down.
Despite the squishing, I was making progress. I now had incontrovertible proof that the more money you had, the happier you got. And the goal was to get as far up this polyamorous red line as possible. But what would it actually feel like to be up there in the top right corner of this whiteboard?
I'd like to know what his study, I'd like to read that study and just know what the parameters of the study are, because it's like, really? Does it really go up exponentially like that? Is that true? I don't know. I'm gonna need to read that study.
I asked Matt if his research had turned up an answer.
There are a lot of things we can run experiments with, but money is actually quite a bit trickier because it's so darn expensive to run an experiment where you give people enough money to matter for happiness. But there's a natural experiment. They're called lotteries, and there have been some really great studies that have found that the people who play and win are not only happier than the people who play and don't win, but they followed up 5 or 10 years later and found they continue to be fairly substantially happier.
So we got to meet a lottery winner.
I don't like that idea. People that play the lottery and win are happier than people that play the lottery and don't win. Obviously. What? I don't think that's a good example.
Or we have to win the lottery.
That would be interesting.
Okay. If one thing was clear at this point in the investigation, it was that lottery winners are happy as shit. So I had to speak to one myself. Timothy Schultz won the lottery in 1999, winning over $20 million in almost a day. So I'm here to speak to him right in our studio. My first question for you right out of the gate, Timothy, are you happy?
Most days. I try to be happy. I think so.
There it was, the look of someone who had enough money to be happy. And here was my chance to find out how he did it. so that one day I might look in the mirror and see my own face wearing that grin.
So you interview a lot of lottery winners. Would you say the majority of the people that you interview are also happy?
Most people that I've met and interviewed overwhelmingly have been.
I don't like this line of questioning. I think it's flawed because obviously it doesn't matter whatever your level of happiness or not happiness is. If you win a lottery, you're going to be happy about it, obviously. And then you're going to be optimistic about your life because obviously you won the lottery. But the lottery winners, let me see what percentage of people that play the lottery winners. 1%, what percentage of people that play the lottery win? Okay, so they're talking about odds of winning, but I want like an actual stat of like people that win because it's so tiny, and that's based on, you know, people like this. If there's 5 numbers, you have a 1 to 144,000 chance here. You have a 1 to 7.5 million chance to win here. You have a 1 in 45 million chance to win. So it's like, and those are people that play the lottery. Not everyone plays the lottery. So few people win the lottery in the first place that using that as a parameter of happiness to say that, you know, more money makes you happy, I think is a bit flawed, personally.
Happier, but it's not a black or white situation. I mean, the truth is that if you win the lottery, if you win a major prize, then who you are on the inside is really what matters, because who you are on the inside can be magnified. And if you're this terribly unhappy person on the inside, you might still be unhappy after the exhilaration of winning wears off.
Oh no, I'd come all this way only for Timothy, the podcast host / lottery winner, to tell me that the very nature of my investigation might be flawed. If the true solution to happiness lay inside the soul rather than the wallet, I stood no chance. My soul is as black as my outside is white.
Timothy, for the purposes of this interview,
there are poor people who are really happy because they're content, because they're not. If you're the kind of person that you feel like the fact I can travel, I'm just happy I can travel. I'm just happy I have a roof over my head. I'm just happy I have a car that takes me from point A to B, which is a position I think most people should be at. Then you're not past a certain amount of money, and like they said, the 70k threshold, you're probably not going to be any more happy the more you make. So yeah, I think that line of questioning was a bit flawed.
I'm gonna need you to tell me that winning the lottery is necessary. I'm gonna need to be incredibly wealthy to be happy, because if I'm not incredibly wealthy, what's even the point? You know?
Well, yeah, I mean, you have to basically, yeah, I mean, you can do, I mean, the truth is you can do anything, whether you are incredibly wealthy or not. Dreams can come true, but it helps. It's a huge leg up if you have lots of money, I mean, or win a lottery, because you have more opportunities, your quality of life can be better.
Good enough for me. I now had my marching orders. Over the course of my journey, my head learned lots of information, much of it unsatisfactory for men who enjoy talking a lot with their hands. In order to be happy, I've been told I needed 2 to 3 times as much money as I had. I've been told that true happiness lay in giving money away. I've been told I needed $75,000. Then I've been told I needed more than $75,000, ideally as much more as possible. Finally, here was something I could act on. I'd conclusively learned that...
Okay, we're going to stop this video here. I thought it was going to be a lot better than it was. I thought he was going to answer the question a lot better than he did. It just turned into some sort of like comical joke. It wasn't that useful, to be honest. But fair enough on the video. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Here is a video I saw via a new YouTuber like me. A lot more subscribers than me though, at 399. But the video is titled "The Fastest Way to Reach Your First Billion: Lessons from Real Billionaires." So I thought This might be a bit fascinating to watch, so let's have a look.
Let's say you make $10,000 every single day. Not per month, per day. That's $300,000 per month, which already puts you in the top 0.1% of earners globally. You're living better than 99.9% of humanity. Private jets are within reach, luxury penthouses are affordable. You've made it by every normal definition of success. Now here's the reality check that'll ruin your mood. At $10,000 per day, it would take you 274 years to reach $1 billion. You'd need to start earning in the year 1750, back when George Washington was a teenager.
Yeah, I've talked about this in previous videos, but $1 billion is so much money. When you start making comparisons, it's like, yeah, it's insane. Like, the more you compare to what $1 billion is, the more you realize how, like, just stupidly insane the whole thing is.
And the Industrial Revolution hadn't even begun. And keep that income streak going uninterrupted until today, just to hit $1 billion. No vacations, no sick days, no market crashes, just a consistent 10 grand per day for nearly 3 centuries. So clearly, earning your way to $1 billion through traditional income is mathematically ridiculous. God. The numbers don't work, the timeline doesn't work, human lifespans barely work. You need a completely different approach. And that's where things get interesting. You need to start a company, but not just any company. Tech startups are the obvious play here, because software has margins that would make a drug cartel jealous. Build an app, get users, pray that venture capitalists throw money at you before you run out of ramen. Mark Zuckerberg went from college dropout to billionaire in 4 years with Facebook. That's less time than most people spend getting a degree they'll never use. He was 23 when he crossed the $1 billion mark. The catch is that for every Zuckerberg, there are 10,000 founders whose apps got downloaded 17 times, mostly by their mothers and a few bots. But let's say your app actually works. You build the next viral sensation, something...
Okay, so I don't know what the message of this video is, but I'm going to guess that the point he's making is that to accelerate your wealth, you can't trade money for time in the traditional sense. You have to start a business that scales quickly. Well, which I would agree with. I think that's very, very true. Yeah, I think like clocking into a job, you're never really going to be a billionaire. If you clock into a job, you can definitely be super rich. Like there are CEOs that are still clocking in and they've been working their way up in the corporate ladder, and they make tens of millions in bonuses at the highest level, maybe close to 100 million in bonuses. So they're stinkingly rich, but they're not billionaires. Billionaires is so much money. It's just not even like, the only way really is to start like a really, really valuable business that scales. That's the only way.
Sticky, something addictive, something that makes people forget they have real lives to live. You need 100 million users spending an average of $10 each. Or you could go the advertising route and sell their attention to the highest bidder like every other platform. Spotify took 15 years to make Daniel Ek a billionaire. Instagram took Kevin Systrom about 3 years before Facebook bought it for $1 billion, which is honestly the fastest exit strategy ever recorded. Build something huge, sell it to someone with deeper pockets, and let them worry about making it profitable. Here's where it gets complicated. Most countries won't let you speed run your way to $1 billion without consequences. China mints billionaires faster than any other nation on Earth, but the government also has a habit of making them disappear if they get too loud about it. Jack Ma founded Alibaba and became the richest person in China, then criticized financial regulators and vanished from public view for 3 months. He came back significantly quieter. So maybe pick a country where speaking your mind doesn't result in mandatory re-education. The United States has produced the most billionaires historically, with tech, finance, and real estate being the holy trinity of extreme wealth. Europe has luxury goods dynasties that have been printing money since before your great-grandparents were born. Bernard Arnault runs LVMH and bounces between being the first and second richest person alive, depending on which day you check. His path involved acquiring every prestigious brand he could get his hands on and consolidating an empire built on selling handbags that cost more than cars. Now, if starting a company sounds like too much work, there's always the inheritance route. But that requires being born into the right family. which you've presumably already failed at if you're watching this. So let's talk about actual strategies that might work within a single human lifetime. Elon Musk sold Zip2 for $22 million, rolled that into X.com, which became PayPal, sold PayPal for $180 million, then dumped everything into SpaceX and Tesla when both companies were on the verge of bankruptcy. He became a billionaire in his early 30s.
Well, yeah, so that's the thing. It's like, to make that much money, you have to be so ahead of the curve, and you need to know what's coming before it comes. And you need to build the infrastructure around that so that when the world needs it, you're the person that's built the infrastructure. So everything has to go through you. That's like basically the only way to become a billionaire. It's not like there aren't all these like crazy strategies. You can't strategize your way to being a billionaire.
By betting everything on industries that everyone said were impossible. Reusable rockets, mass market electric cars, flamethrowers for some reason. Cryptocurrency created more billionaires faster than any asset class in history, and also destroyed.
Yeah, cryptocurrency is exactly what I'm talking about. Because when crypto first came, I remember when especially things like Bitcoin first came and people were like skeptical and it really wasn't expensive. And look at how much, what is one Bitcoin worth now? Probably stupid amount of money. What's one Bitcoin in dollars? I'm just curious to see. So one Bitcoin right now is 88.8K in USD. That's crazy. And obviously it's very volatile. Like, I mean, even just today, look at how it drops. Let's look at it over the past month. Okay, performance is not bad. I mean, it's higher at the end of the month than it was at the start. Let's look at a 6-month period. So over 6 months, it has gone down quite significantly. But over a year, it's about the same place. It's about the same value. Really shot up around here where it was 121K. Let's see, 5 years is where it really matters, because obviously if you're investing in these things, you want to be in it for, I normally say 10 years. So 5 years ago, it was 26.4K. Right now, it's 88.809K. So if you bought Bitcoin 5 years ago, your money has more than 3x'd, which is like insane. Absolutely insane. So that's the thing. It's more about knowing that Bitcoin was coming, understanding cryptocurrency before everyone else did, getting in there early, being an early adopter, and then, you know, buying in and investing. Because I think like if we go there was a time when it was so cheap. I mean, look at here where Bitcoin is like 655 USD each, like 1K each. It's just crazy for that to now be worth 89K. Like imagine you bought, you invested 10K in Bitcoin. You would have so much money. If you're like an early adopter, you would be so rich. So it's still the same strategy. It's still about being an early adopter, seeing what's coming before everyone else realizes it. So you have to be someone that thinks outside of the box, basically. And that's basically for the business idea. Some people think outside the box and have the skills to execute, like the tech guys that can actually program their own software that obviously changes the world and stuff like that. So I don't think there's, like I said, it's very straightforward.
More fortunes just as quickly. The Winklevoss twins turned their Facebook settlement money into a Bitcoin empire and became billionaires when the price exploded. Sam Bankman-Fried built a $30 billion exchange called FTX and lost it all in about 3 days when everyone realized it was held together with duct tape and fraud. He's currently in prison, which is probably not the outcome you're looking for. But then there's Changpeng Zhao, better known as CZ, who founded Binance and became a billionaire in roughly 7 months. Most people can't lose weight in 7 months, and this guy built the world's largest cryptocurrency exchange from his laptop while moving between countries to avoid regulators. He launched Binance in July 2017 during the crypto boom, processed billions in trading volume daily and watched his net worth explode past $1 billion before the year was even over. That's faster than any tech startup, any IPO, any traditional business model ever recorded. Of course, he also recently spent 4 months in prison for money laundering violations, so the lesson here is that moving at light speed in unregulated markets comes with consequences. Still, 7 months to $1 billion is genuinely insane. Build a platform, a product, or a piece of infrastructure that becomes essential to modern life. Scale it globally before anyone realizes what you're doing, and hope you maintain control long enough to see the valuation spike. The average time from startup to billion-dollar valuation is 7 years if you're extraordinarily lucky and in the right sector at the right time with the right team and the right market conditions. Most people never get there. Most companies die before their second birthday.
Yeah, so yeah, kind of what I expected. Kind of this idea that, you know, to be a billionaire, you kind of have to just create something that everyone relies on and scale it globally. And you have to do all of this in a secretive way, because if you're not already a billionaire, well, there are other billionaires in existence that have the resources to kind of compete. So if they realize and understand what you're doing is going to shift, you know, society forward, they can, you know, hop on it and then try to get a lot of their people on it, and they have the resources. So it's a lot. Don't know what happened there. It kind of disappeared from my own stream. But like I was saying, it's a lot of different factors that determines your ability to be able to do all those things. And you kind of have to have luck on your side. There's a lot of things that have to come together. But anyway, let's find this last video. So this video was actually requested by someone on the channel. Now, I obviously have a very tiny channel. I have 37 subscribers. So obviously I see all the comments because I don't get that many. And someone actually asked me to talk about how, you know, rich people got richer during COVID. Now, I think there's no better explanation than the one by this guy, Gary Stevenson. A lot of you might know who he is. Some of you might not. He's based in the UK. So if you're American watching this, you might not be aware who he is. In the UK, he's a famous economist. He's, studied economics. He's was a trader at Citibank. He has a book and a massive platform on YouTube. So definitely check out Gary's Economics if you can. But yeah, his kind of claim to fame, and this was the first video I actually saw of him so many years ago, was him making a prediction, which is what a lot of traders do, about why COVID would make the rich richer. So let's watch it and then just kind of react to it. I've already watched the video before, but just to kind of answer that request, we can watch it again.
This video is about coronavirus and money. Now, this is a really important video. I've been wanting to make it for a long time because huge historic things are happening in the world of money here. Even when I was working as a money trader in the 2008 crisis, nothing ever happened of this speed. Now, what's happening in the world of money here is going to dominate the economy for the next few years, quite possibly even the next few decades. It's going to affect you. It's going to affect your family's financial position. So if you want to understand what's going to happen in the economy going forward, you go watch this video. Now, so far in this crisis, most workers have had their incomes relatively protected. In this country, the UK, most workers are still working and getting their regular incomes. Of those who can't work, the majority are being supported by government furlough and self-employment schemes. Now, as many as 5.5 million workers have fallen through the gaps of those schemes and are getting almost no income support. Now, those guys already are feeling the pain of this financial crisis. But what we're going to explain in this video is how even if your income is being supported...
Oh, yeah, because people who were on 0-hour contracts at the time weren't eligible for furlough. So they didn't get that COVID money. Obviously, if you're self-employed, a lot of self-employed people, if not all, didn't have access to the money. So yeah,
The changes in the world of money behind the scenes are going to affect your financial position going forward. Now we're going to explain how. Now, the biggest changes have been happening in the world of government and central banks. Now, this is happening all over the world, but in the UK, the central bank, the Bank of England, has committed to printing £300 billion. £300 billion is an enormous amount of money. It's £4,500 for every single man, woman, and child in the country. It's more than 3 times the net worth of Jeff Bezos, the world's richest man. Now, when such a huge amount of money gets printed and put into the economy, it's really important we understand 3 things about it. 1, how does it work? So we're going to talk about exactly what money printing is. 2, where does the money go? And 3, where does the money end up? Now, those last 2 things, they may sound similar, but they're actually crucially different. And we're going to explain why. Okay, so number 1, how does this new money work? So I think a lot of people are confused by the concept of money printing. It's important to understand that this £300 billion is brand new money created by the central bank. Now, if that's confusing to you, you just need to understand that the central bank has the legal right to print or create brand new money.
Yeah, it's not printed though, because obviously it's the central bank. Like back then they would print it, but now that we're in a cashless society, it's quite interesting just historically how, because we use terms like printing money, because the central bank did physically print money when all of us use cash. But nowadays, obviously, we're in a cashless society, so we need to find another word for it. So we just say printing, because people kind of understand what that means. This means that they create it electronically. But yeah, I think he might say that.
Now, we say print money to give the visual idea of a printing press printing out new banknotes. But in reality, nowadays, most money is electronic. So what that means in practice is that the Bank of England is allowed to simply credit its own account with new money. Okay, so this is brand new money. It doesn't come from anyone. It's not raised through taxes. It's simply created by the Bank of England. When that money gets poured into the system, we need to understand who's going to get it. And the next question, where does it go? Now, most of this money is getting lent from the Bank of England to the government. Now, even though this is brand newly created money and the Bank of England is a government institution, the government still has to borrow it from the Bank of England. This creates a debt which legally the government has to pay back. For this reason, government debt has increased hugely already in this crisis. And just recently, UK government debt has gone above 100% of GDP for the first time in over 50 years. So what does the government then do with this money? Well, the government gives most of it to furloughed workers and other workers who can't get their income during the coronavirus crisis. This brings us to part 3. Where does the money end up? Now, we know the money is being paid to furloughed workers. But if we look at the actual situation of furloughed workers, they're actually receiving less income than they were before the crisis happened. This is because even
the furlough. So for people that don't know, the furlough, which was kind of like the money that the British government gave to workers during COVID to kind of help them survive basically and get by, they didn't give people 100% of their salary. I think it was like, correct me if I'm wrong in the chat, but it was like 75% of people's total salary.
They're receiving government income support. It's only 80% of their original wages.
80%.
And their original wages are no longer coming in. So this creates a mystery. We know that a lot of new money is coming into the economy. And we know that ultimately it's going to the furloughed workers. But the furloughed workers are no richer than they were before. So where's the money going? That brings us to question number 3. Where does the money end up? Now, we know the money is being paid to the furloughed workers, but the furloughed workers have less money than they had before the coronavirus crisis because they've lost the wages that they were originally being paid. If we want to know who ends up with the money, we need to find out who has those wages. Where have the wages gone that used to be paid to the workers? So if you want to understand, we have to follow this cash flow back through the system. Now, normally wages get paid to the workers through the companies. But if we look at the companies, we'll find that most of these companies are struggling as well because customers have simply stopped coming to their stores and stopped buying their stuff. So we need to follow the cash flow back one step further to the customers. Now, the customers in this crisis have dropped their spending massively. For that reason, many of these customers are holding more money in their pockets. That money is not going to the companies, which means the wages have stopped. So the people who are holding more money, the net benefiters of the new money being put into the system, are actually the customers. Now, when I say that, you're probably thinking, wait a minute, I'm a customer. Where's my £4,500 per man, woman and child? And that would be a good question. The reason why you might not be holding £4,500 more than you were before is because not all customers are created equal. Remember, the reason that customers have more money now than they had before the crisis is because they've cut their spending.
Yep.
But it's not all spending that has...
Yeah, I need to touch on that. I'm not sure if he's going to touch on it fully because I watched this video so long ago. But so when furlough happened, you need to think that there's a difference between like being given 70% of your wage, which is enough for you to take care of your necessities, versus, 80%, versus 80% when your salary is like $1 million a year. So imagine... because London is really unaffordable now, so people are really struggling, right? So most people are just getting by with their salary, being able to pay for rent, pay for bills, and all these things. So when all of us had to stay at home because of COVID, they still had the same bills to pay. So they still had to pay rent, they still had to pay all these bills. So they're not really that better off. If anything, they're worse off, because there's 20% less that they're not getting paid because they can't go to work because it was lockdown. It was COVID. Everything was the pandemic. So they're still struggling. Meanwhile, if you're rich, your necessities have always been taken care of. So, and your necessities are a very tiny percentage of your earnings. And the rest of your money usually goes into every time you travel, you fly first class. You take your friends, your husband, your wife, whoever, to luxury stores and spend tens of thousands of pounds. You buy really, really expensive cars. The fuel cost, because most expensive cars are fuel guzzlers like Rolls Royces and McLarens and Ferraris. They literally guzzle fuel. So all of this cost that is like your lifestyle, the lifestyle that you're used to, is not being used. Is not being exercised. So with that spare money, where you're going to be like, well, where do I put this money? What can I do? Let me buy houses. And the reason why a lot of those people bought houses was because a lot of the people that didn't have an income or were just getting by, struggling to pay off their necessities, a lot of them had to sell their houses. They were forced into selling their houses. And because they were so desperate and the situation was so dire, and also a lot of people didn't really know when the pandemic would be over, it was just a lot of uncertainty. So a lot of people had to live for the now. They were forced into it. So a lot of them started selling their houses, and they had to sell their houses at really, really low prices. And these houses were bought by these people that would normally spend their money on flying private and, fueling their Rolls Royces. They had absolutely nothing to spend the money on because they're just not allowed to go out. And host events or fly and travel to different countries. So they were just like, yeah, let's just start investing. Let's start buying all these houses, for cheaper than the market value. And now that we're out of COVID, that's why a lot of rich people during COVID got a lot richer. A lot.
Cut here. Spending on essentials such as rent, mortgage, food, and bills still has to be paid. So if most of your spending is on those essentials, your spending won't have fallen by much. The spending that has fallen is on non-essentials and luxuries. So see here, the customers who are saving the most money are the ones who have very high spending on non-essentials and luxuries. Well, you're probably starting to see where I'm going with this. Who spends a lot of money on luxuries? The customers who are accumulating money during this crisis are the rich. Now, I wrote an article predicting this back in March, explaining how rich people, because they would cut their spending, would accumulate savings and money during this crisis. Since then, data has come out from a lot of institutions, including the IPPR in the UK, demonstrating clearly that rich people have been accumulating money during this crisis because their spending has reduced so much. It's interesting to compare here the situation of a furloughed worker with a richer person in the economy. Furloughed workers have lost their income, which comes from services jobs, but they've kept most of their spending, which is largely on essentials like...
Yep, so they're worse off because if most of their money is going on necessities, and now they have 80% of the, 100% that they would usually have, they're fucked. Basically, they're just fucked.
Rent and bills. Richer workers who tend to work in office jobs and can work from home have kept their incomes, whereas their spending, which is largely on luxuries, has collapsed. It's important to understand the significance it has on the economy when the rich people stop spending. Now, in normal times, rich people have very high spending, much higher than ordinary workers. Because that spending goes to companies which employ workers, it contributes to wages being paid. This is really important because ordinary workers have to pay bills, rent, food. When they pay that money, a lot of that money ends up going to the owners of the houses and the owners of the corporations, who are themselves the rich. So as you can see in this diagram, in a normal situation, the spending of the rich goes to the workers, and when the workers pay their rent, bills, and food, it goes back to the rich. The money flows around in a circle. So what happens when the rich suddenly stop spending? Well, that money was driving the wages for ordinary workers. Suddenly, the workers' wages have disappeared. But they still have to pay the rent, they still have to pay the mortgage, they still have to pay the bills. How are they going to do that with no income? It's a massive problem. And if nothing happens, some of these guys, they could become homeless, they could not even get food on the table. So it's no surprise that in this emergency situation, the government and the Bank of England stepped in with the furlough scheme. This provides a substitute income to ordinary workers who have lost their wages. It's important to realize that at this point, from the perspective of the worker, things actually look quite similar to how they did pre-crisis. They've got an income, they've got their expenditure. Their income's a little bit less, they have to save a little bit. But from their perspective, the situation is largely unchanged. But look at what is happening outside in the system. Previously, the money was going around in a circle. What's happening now? The money gets printed by the Bank of England. It goes to the worker. The worker pays their bills, it goes to the rich. And then it just stays there because the rich are not spending their money anymore. That means money piles up with the rich and accumulates.
Yep.
And what happens with the government? They accumulate debt. Okay, so we've learned that during the COVID crisis, most people's financial situation appears relatively unchanged. However, behind the scenes, the government is accumulating big piles of debt and the rich are accumulating big piles of money. The next question is, why does that matter? Well, the easier part of that question is to talk about why big government debt could affect you. Those of you who are old enough to remember 2008 will remember at that time too, government debt increased and the government came in and used that to enforce austerity. Now that impacted a lot of people. It had a lot of effects in many, many different ways. That could happen again if government debt increases again. Now, I'm not a politician, I'm not a political forecaster, I'm an economic forecaster. I can't tell you if austerity will happen again. But what I want to talk about is those big piles of money stacking up in rich people's bank accounts. How's that going to affect you? So what does it mean if the rich get richer? I mean, if they just stack the money in their bank account, it's probably not a problem, right? Personally, I worked in the finance industry for a long time.
Yeah, they're not stacking.
I managed money for the rich. I got involved in understanding.
They're not stacking money in their bank account because they know that if they just stack money in a savings account, inflation is going to increase at a faster rate than the returns that they get from the savings account. Like, no one with half a brain cell is going to do that. Like, so I don't know what he's going to say, but he's definitely going to say that they're just not going to keep it in the savings account. Doesn't make any sense.
Understanding how they invest their money. Through that, I made some money myself. I got involved in investing myself. I know a little bit about what the rich do when money starts piling up in their bank account. Number one, they buy houses. But it's not just houses they buy. They buy stocks, they buy shares, they buy bonds, they buy gold. To be honest, they buy everything. Now, let's look at what happened last time the government used money printing to solve a financial crisis. We can look back to the 2008 crisis. In many ways, that was similar. That time too, the Bank of England printed a huge amount of money to try and deal with an economic crisis. What happened then? Well, within 6 years, stock prices in London had doubled. Within 3 years, the gold price was up 150%. And within 10 years of the crisis, London house prices had doubled. What does that mean? Well, in the 20 years since 2000, through that period of crisis and rising house prices, the percentage of young people who've been able to afford a home in this country has fallen from 65 to 27%. What will it mean if house prices double again? It will mean that realistically, people who are from a family that doesn't have a home now will probably never own housing.
Yeah, when did he make this video again? Sorry. 5 years ago, yeah. So 5 years later, we're already at a point in London where most young people are just never going to own their home. Like, let's be for real.
It means that those people will be locked out of the housing market forever. It means that young people will find it more difficult to get the security of a home to raise a family. And at the same time as that's happening, stock prices are going to go up, gold prices are going to go up, the rich are going to get richer than ever before. But it's not just stocks and shares and housing that these guys are going to buy. They'll be in the shops too, and they'll have a lot more money to push those prices up. It's very likely that over the next few years, we're going to see the prices of a lot of things increase. At the same time, what's going to happen to wages? Well, we've already seen the unemployment rate double in this country, and that's in spite of a furlough scheme encouraging firms to keep jobs on. There's currently 9 million workers on that furlough scheme, and when that starts to be wrapped up, a lot of those workers will probably be pushed into unemployment. With unemployment going up and up and up, it's very likely that just as house prices and prices in the shops are rising, wages will stay low. Okay, so what can we do? We know that under the current situation, the rich are going to get richer while wages fall, house prices rise, and shop prices increase. It's going to make housing unaffordable, and it's going to drop living conditions for regular people. Can it be fixed? Well, personally, I think that it can. If you go back and look at this slide.
So the interesting thing about his assessment, just to talk about it quickly, is that his assessment was sound. Obviously, it's been proven to be right 5 years later. He was like completely correct. And I think my issue with Gary Stevenson, not to say that like he's supposed to come up with all the answers, is that he's really intelligent, obviously. He's a really successful trader. He worked in the bank. He studied at the best institutions. I think he did his master's at Oxford, and he did his bachelor's degree at LSE, London School of Economics, which is basically like the best business school in London at this point. So he's smart, but he never really has solutions, which is why I like stopped watching him as often, because it started to feel like he would say the exact same thing in every video. He's like, don't let the rich get richer and like all that sort of stuff. But like, I'm looking to him for, what would you do? Like, what are your solutions? Especially because you have the expertise. So I guess that like, that's one of my issues with his message, at least now, like 5 years later.
Explaining the problem, we can see what's happening. Money currently is flowing from the government to the rich, leaving the government with big piles of debt and the rich with big piles of money. We can actually fix this with one simple arrow on this diagram. If we start money moving back around the system, away from the rich, no more cash piles for the rich.
Yeah, so income to the government is basically tax, right?
No more debt for the government. In my opinion, we need to find ways to tax the truly rich in our society by taxing wealth rather than just income. This will draw money from the wealthiest people in our society, the people who get their income from owning assets rather than working. Ultimately, we need to find a way to make the richest in our society contribute to fixing this crisis rather than simply profiting from it. Otherwise, financial security is going to move out of the reach of our kids. Thank you for watching. This is
a great video. Great to watch it again after all these years and like with more context. I think, yeah, like I said, I think his reasoning and his way of thinking is completely sound. He was definitely correct on the rich being richer after COVID. I mean, we see it. Everyone can see it, that it's true. I think my only issue is that, like, how do you tax the rich? Because it's so complicated. It's not... Rich people are the government. Like, in the UK, almost every single person in government is a rich kid. These are kids that studied at Eton, where they, at least, I'm sure they pay now, but it was like, you know, £30,000 a year, if not more, to go to that school. All the elites go to that school. They all study at Oxford University. It's very, like, when all these people are rich and all their friends are rich, I don't know why, they just won't tax the rich. And I feel like politics is all about playing games, right? So it's like politicians, they tell normal people, like, what we want to hear, but in reality, they know that all the stuff that they do behind the scenes is to help their rich friends. So it's very hard to tax the rich when those are all the people that are in government right now, and those are their families and their friends. So that's the issue I have. It's like, what is the solution now? What do we do about it? How do we fix it, rather than just like recognizing the issue? But yeah, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.